Zone 4 interval training. Besides this being probably one of the hardest training days that you're going to have in your week when you're training for an Ironman, this is probably the most important factor in getting faster and stronger as a cyclist. But so many people don't actually know how to approach their Zone 4 interval training properly. And so I decided to make this video to share exactly what my approach is and how you can start implementing this in your training. So with that, let's begin. What is your Zone 4 power level? This is probably the biggest and first question that any beginner should be asking themselves when they're thinking about how to get stronger on the bike. And to answer this question, I actually covered the method of finding this in another video without explicitly saying this right here. So if you watched my "What is a ramp test" video or some title along those lines, I taught exactly what a ramp test is on the bike, how to go about doing it, and what number you receive at the end of your ramp test. And the number or the output of that test is what's referred to as your FTP, or your functional threshold power. Now, this is a number that you will use to pretty much determine what all of your other cycling power levels are. But the really convenient part of this number is it's also exactly within the range of what your Zone 4 interval workouts should be held at. And we're keeping it really simple here. So if you're planning on getting stronger as a cyclist and you have a number that's called your functional threshold power, the only real logical thing, and this logic is correct, the only logical way to improve that functional threshold power is to spend as much time in that zone as you possibly can. But as you can imagine, this is a lot easier said than done. So what is the best way to spend as much time in that zone as possible while getting stronger at it week over week? Interval training. So the goal of the Zone 4 interval training is to methodically and week over week increase the amount of time that you're spending at your FTP level. And over the course of, say, for myself and the way that I like to plan out my training plan and those of the athletes that I coach, I start out spending approximately 12 minutes of an interval workout in this area, and I'll work up to anywhere between 20 and 25 minutes split between different interval segments. Now, if you're lucky, you have an application like Zwift where you can just punch in your FTP, program a workout to be within specific zones, and you're off to the races. You can just get started right away and start chipping away at this type of work. But if you're not so lucky, then here's exactly what you need to do. With this number in hand and knowing what your low aerobic threshold is on the bike, you can essentially create this type of workout on any stationary bike that you have available to you. It definitely won't be as good as using Zwift, but you can give it a go. So the way I like to structure these workouts week over week is week 1, I may do an hour and 15 minutes total on the bike, where the center of that workout, after getting nice and warmed up and maybe doing some harder efforts in the beginning of that to really get the legs used to pumping out some power, is at the center of that workout, I will do 6 2-minute Zone 4 intervals with a minute of recovery in between. To do this, you'll just increase the power and keep an eye on the amount of watts you're putting out on the stationary bike and try your hardest to be as steady as possible. Now, the following week, you will do 3-minute intervals, and you'll structure it in a way where you're increasing the amount of overall time. So, doing the math real quick, you'll likely do 5 3-minute intervals for a total time of 15 minutes in this zone 4 range. And then what I like to do is 4 by 5, so then you hit 20, and so on and so forth. Then 6 and 4, 24, and towards the end, I end up doing like full 10-minute intervals at approximately 3 10-minute intervals that will total to 30 minutes in your zone 4. Now, after you do your first one of these workouts, you're going to feel like this is completely impossible because your legs will be on fire, your heart will be on fire, you won't be able to breathe. But the surprising thing about cycling and knowing this FTP number is if you approach this gradually, doing only one of these workouts week over week, you'll see some pretty significant gains within 6 weeks to 2 months. Now, when you get to the end of a period or a cycle of where you've been building up week over week, now it's time to retest and get your new number. Now, if you're lucky enough and you have an application like Swift, you have a Wahoo, then I actually have these data files saved on my computer that I just click on the custom workouts that I've created for myself, and I just need to run through these custom workouts week over week, and I really don't have to do any legwork at all because these programs are pre-built based on power levels that will be modified when I input what my FTP is into Swift. So this was a little bit of a deeper, more technical video, but the main takeaway that I would like all of you to pull from this video is that the whole point of doing zone 4 intervals is to put as much work at your functional threshold power as possible. And by doing this smarter, incrementally increasing the amount of time spent at your FTP or zone 4 power level week over week, you'll be getting stronger and stronger on the bike. And this is really hard work. Like I said, this is probably the hardest that you'll work out in each given week during your Ironman training. But it's 100% worth it. Like, you're gonna spend most of your time in an Ironman race on the bike, hands down. And no matter what the race is, a majority of the time is going to be spent on the bike. So the stronger and more comfortable you can get on the bike, pushing out power, the better off you're going to be. So hopefully you find this useful. If you did, please subscribe, like, and comment. And if you're interested in hearing more about this stuff, then just tell me exactly in the comments what you want to learn or hear about. Any questions that you might have, I'm very much open to suggestions. So have a good night.